Welcome to the Working Actor on Casting Workbook. It's been a while, but it was worth the wait because this time around, this episode features one of the leading casting directors in Hollywood. It's award season and it is holiday season, which means that a lot of people are probably going to be watching a lot of films over the holidays and also getting up to date on what's going to be award worthy come award season. Well, our next casting director had a big say in who was cast in the movie Devotion. If you haven't seen it, it's an inspirational aerial war epic story based on the true story of Jesse Brown, who was the first Black aviator in the US Navy history. And the lead is played by Jonathan Majors. I'd like to welcome on Casting Workbooks the working actor Tamara-Lee Notcutt, who was responsible for Devotion. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am so happy that you are here. I just want to let everyone know that you're taking time from your friend's wedding rehearsal right now in the UK, so we won't keep you very long, okay?
No, it's all good.
Well, thanks for making time for us. I really appreciate
Pleasure.
it.
Pleasure.
That shows devotion to your craft. I appreciate that.
Exactly.
So I saw this movie and I want to start off with that because I felt it was such a great film. It was sad at the end. I don't want to give it away, but I cried and it hit all the right spots. And you had a major say in who was playing the roles in that movie. So can you tell me a little bit about the experience in taking on the project of Devotion?
Yeah, so I met with JD and the producers prior to COVID, and then COVID happened, and so we got shut down. But Glenn Powell was actually the sort of pioneer in acquiring the rights to the story after reading the book about these two men, and sort of put the project in motion. So he was obviously already attached to play Tom Hudner, so I did not cast him, even though he did great. So obviously, I mean, he's perfect.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan Majors as well. They attached him prior to me, although I consulted on with ideas, but officially they cast him. But from everybody else onwards, it was a really cool experience because we didn't have, even though it looks sort of like a massively big budget movie, it wasn't for the type of genre that it is. And so we didn't really have much money to pay people, and we just wanted people that were passionate about the film. And in a sort of really sort of fortuitous way, the producers weren't saying that we had to have big names in the movie. They were just like, we just want really good actors, which is such a joy to hear because it means that you can actually properly cast something and not sort of just pepper it with famous people. And so everybody auditioned, and some of the actors I didn't know at all, some of them I did know, but for the most part, it was such a great process, because it was the first project I did on Zoom for COVID, and because of COVID. And JD is so great with actors as well. And so, everyone did a first round self-tape, and then I watched them, and then I sort of did my selects and showed them to the producers and the director, and then we narrowed it down, and then he then did sort of meeting callbacks, not even to sort of audition them, more just to get a sense of their vibe, because one of the best things about this movie is the chemistry between all of the actors. And they all got on so well, mainly because they were sort of locked up in COVID, and so they all had to bubble together. And I think it forced them all to have such a camaraderie very quickly, which you don't often see. That they're all friends to this day. They all play golf together, they all go to see Joe Jonas in concert together, they all
Really?
together. Yeah, they're so cute.
I love that.
And so yeah, that's sort of one of the best things one of the proudest moments, I think, of the piece, but one of the best things about casting it.
I have to tell you that watching the film, you actually did feel the camaraderie and the friendship. You didn't feel like it was acting. You felt like they really, essentially liked each other and were friends in real life. So good on you for putting them all together that way.
Honestly, it was just great luck. It was like, as I said, I didn't know a lot of them. It was just like liking their auditions, liking what they did, and then meeting them and, on Zoom and liking them then as well. And just, because when you're in such a sort of intense environment, especially with the pandemic on top of everything else, with like a low budget and, all of these elements that are going to be tough, bad weather, everything, you want good people at the end of the day. You want people that are going to be cool and not, cause a ruckus and just get on with each other. And that was the best thing about it. I never had a bad word from anybody on the set.
So I'm assuming that with an epic historical drama like this, there's long days on set. And like you said, you need to count on the people that they're not going to kind of get fed up of the long days, you know,
Mhm.
the shooting schedule, the climate, because it's done out in snow, et cetera, et cetera. So what kind of characters in terms of actors were you looking for that in qualities that they should possess to be in this devotion film?
I what really struck me is that, you know, the roles of like the guys in the 32s, their roles weren't so much on the page. They, you know, they said their lines and stuff, but you didn't really get to know them. So we had to, one of the things that JD and I talked about, especially with using the example of Carol Morning, played by Nick Hargrove, is that we have to instantly like these guys. We have to instantly kind of get their vibe and their personality through very quick amounts of time, and root for them and invest in them, because really the story is Jesse and Tom. So we don't get to see much of these guys. And so I think what we were looking for was just people that had a personality and charisma, but it wasn't too much, but it was just something that there was something about them that made me go, oh, I want to see more of them. I want to know more about them.
Yeah.
And so they all brought their own characters to life with their own personality, because they didn't have much to play with. So they had to sort of create their own backstories. And I mean, they were real people, so obviously there was research to be done, but still there's not sort of that much known about those people's personalities. So it was just like them adding their own sort of flavor to it, which I think really sort of made it appealing to watch.
Now, when you were going through the audition process through Zoom,
Mm.
what were the things you were asking some of the actors to do during their auditions?
Well, they all self-taped first. So actually we saw everything that we needed them to do. And then also, you know, most of them had reels and stuff, so we could watch their additional materials. But really it was just talking to them, and JD talking to them mainly, and just getting a sense of their vibe and like their commitment and sort of how they got into acting. Really nothing to do with necessarily performing. It's just more about their personalities, because again, that's something that, you know, was helped add to their characters on screen. You know, like Joe Jonas has this swag and this kind of cheekiness about him. Spencer Neville has this you know, joie de vivre, and even though he's kind of playing like slightly racist character, he sort of has a full circle moment almost, with him coming around to respecting Jesse. And it's and again, it's super subtle. It's not really even written. It's just something that he did, and obviously talked about with JD. But it, again, with even without so much as that much dialogue, he brought that sort of essence to it. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's such a great film. And I know I'm asking you a lot about devotion, and I want to get
Yeah,
into
yeah,
your career as a
yeah.
casting director, but I'm just so taken by the movie. And I know we're
Mm.
going to be hearing a lot of it come award season, especially with Jonathan Majors.
Yeah.
And I know you said you didn't have anything to do with casting him, but as a casting director, can you explain what it is about Jonathan Majors that makes him such a leading man now, or make him one of the most coveted actors right now in Hollywood?
I think Jonathan's a rare talent in that he can very much switch up his energy. And, you know, a lot of people kind of play roughly who they are, you know, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that people kind of tap into their sort of own personalities and their own sensibilities, and then elevate that on screen. But he's someone that can really shift and change. He's very chameleon like, and super skilled in that regard. And it's not you know, I could probably put, in my opinion, a handful of actors that can do that, like Sean Penn, for example, can really change up his vibe. But, you know, some people like Brad Pitt is so great, but he's, you know, he has his lane. And some people, and, you know, it's not to take that away from him, because Brad Pitt's amazing, but it's some people can really switch up from playing like a serial killer to be playing like you know, a leading man love interest. It's sort of, he's a very talented guy, and it's, I don't think it's even anything that's necessarily taught. He's obviously been, you know, he went to Yale and has managed to hone his craft, but it's just something that he has inherently in him.
Yes, absolutely. Aside from Casting Workbook, I'm part of the Critics' Choice Association, and we are going to be honoring Jonathan with the Best Actor Award for the
Amazing.
production. Yes. Um,
Oh,
yeah, for the celebration of Black cinema and television. So we're really excited about that, but it's so well deserved. And I thought I'd share that with you because obviously you had something to do with that as well.
yeah.
So
I consulted on the ideas before. I mean, like,
yeah.
Glenn getting Jonathan to, because Jonathan's also for a while had so much stuff coming at him, offers and stuff. So he had a pick and, choice, and which some people don't often have as much. And so him relating to Jesse and giving it, elevating this character and bringing him to life for us today, and on behalf of his the Brown family as well, is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really is. Tamara, you obviously are a very accomplished casting director, one of the most sought after casting directing agencies in Los Angeles, but you started in the UK. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you got started in this industry from the UK and what brought you to Los Angeles?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief because it's kind of a long story, but I wanted to be an actor, and I studied it in college, and in my final year I was just like, you're all right, but you're not great. And I had this conversation with myself.
But aren't we all our worst critics?
Yeah, but I wanted to be a musical theater, and I'm an average singer at best. So it's like I had to really accept that, and so I was just like, I wonder what else there is that I could do. And I was like, I want to be the person that picks the people to be in the thing. And they didn't teach us about casting directors at my terrible school. So I, after college, went out and just applied for internships and managed to randomly get one. I was in college in the UK, get one in Los Angeles at a script development company, and which has since gone away. But went to do that, and whilst I was there, the company closed. But the lot we were working on was the little lot on Formosa in Los Angeles. And from there, I just pimped myself out and managed to get myself as a runner on a film called The Majestic, directed by Frank Darabont, who was my favorite director from, doing The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile. And I decided I wanted to see how a movie was made. So I decided I was just going to intern from A to Z on the cast list, the crew list. And so I started in accounting, went to the art department, and then eventually got to casting, and it was Deborah Quilla's office. And she happened to have her office also on the lot. And so I just marched in there one day and was just like, okay, I'm here to help for 2 weeks. And then there, I realized that that's what I wanted to do. And so I interned in and out of her office for a year, and then came back to the UK and sent out a bunch of applications, and then finally got a position at Hubbard Casting, whom I revered because I was obsessed with the Lord of the Rings franchise, which they cast, and they cast the Bourne movies and all of my favorite things. So I worked with them for a couple of years, and then left and partnered with a casting director called Carrie Hilton. And we were together for about 3.5 years, and then she sadly passed away. And that was what kind of triggered me to change my course and come back to the States. And so a manager, Alan Siegel, who's Jerry Butler's manager, I'd worked with them a little bit on the Tomb Raider movie, Tomb Raider 2. So I got to know them a little bit, and they were like, what do you want? And I said, I think I want to be a casting director in LA, but I can't just walk into being a casting director there. I'm going to have to start again as an assistant. And I said, if you want to help me, send me names of anyone you think that would be up for taking me on and that you think I'd get on with. And so they sent me a bunch of people, and Randi Hiller was one of the people, and she and Sarah Finn had just parted ways as partners. And she was about the only one that responded to me. And she was just like, well, let's see. And because also, if you partner with somebody, or even if you're taking somebody on, regardless, casting's about taste, right? So if you don't have the same taste, you can't represent each other in a meeting, and so she wanted to make sure that we had similar opinions on actors and stuff. And so she ended up getting a movie that was with a director that I'd worked with, and she said, why don't you do the UK portion, and then I can read your notes and see who you think are, you know, who you like, and blah blah blah, and we can go from there. And so we did that, and then she said, okay, you're hired. And then I figured out my visa, which was a nightmare, and then managed to get myself over there. And we worked together for 3 years independent, and then we went over to Disney. She's head of casting at Disney still, and I worked there for 4 years as her number 2, and then I left and went on my own in 2016.
And now you're your number 1.
Now I'm my number 1. Yes,
you are. That is so impressive. Wow. You know, you're just throwing out these names, you know, like Disney and Randi Hiller and all these, you know, big names in casting and in Hollywood. And I'm wondering, at what point did you kind of just have to step back and say, wait a minute, I just cast this person for this role and we're excited about it, and realized you were kind of living the dream?
It was, I think, because when you're in it, you're just in it, right? You don't realize how, you know, what kind of crazy stuff that you've just done. And, you know, 300 was my first biggest movie. And we cast that in 3 weeks. And even though my name's not listed as the casting director on it, it's my business partner, Carrie. She was sick at the time. And so I did all of the casting for it. And I just remember, you know, it was such an easy process because Zack Snyder, it was his, like, one of his first films as well. And so we just like hung out, jived, and like, we're just like, let's just get this done. And no one knew what this movie was going to be. Like, you know, Warner Brothers didn't give us a big budget. And also it was just like, I'll leave them to it because no one knows what this movie is. And so we ended up just like bringing together this sick cast with like Michael Fassbender and, you know, Jerry was attached, but I mean, so David Wenham, so many people. And Zack was so decisive and great as well, which is so nice in a director. And yeah, I mean, did it in 3 weeks. And then you just look at the movie and it's just like, and it was such a massive phenomenon. And then working with Randi, one of the first jobs that we did when I arrived was Thor. And remember like getting the brief for like casting Thor and going, well, I mean, there's only like 5 people it could be that we know of. And Chris Hemsworth was at the top of the list. And he was like first person, first day. But we read and saw people for a year and it was still Chris Hemsworth. And now look at it. I mean, it's such a massive franchise, and the Thor movie and obviously the Avengers and all the Marvel stuff. So it's like, it's pretty cool.
Yes, it's very cool. Now you're talking about Zack Snyder's 300. That was filmed in Montreal. I'm from Montreal, Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you keep saying, you know, the studios gave us such a small budget, but I mean, look what you can do with a small budget. You did it with Devotion. You did it with 300. Imagine you were given an enormous budget.
I know, when you get an enormous budget there, it gets tricky. There's too many other things going on. But yeah, I know. It was, what's so great about if you're doing a smaller budget, you really get people that want to do it. They're not doing it for the cash. And I think that really transcends into, you know, energy and vibes on set and how people behave and all of that kind of stuff. So that's the beauty of actually doing smaller films, is because most of the time people really want to be there.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about Thor. And what was it about Chris Hemsworth that convinced all of you that he was the perfect Thor?
I mean,
look aside on the obvious, we know.
I mean, basically the obvious. That's the thing. It was like, he was, you know, what was so interesting about his journey through it is that at the beginning, because he was literally first person, first day. And, you know, we were in the room with Kenneth Branagh, and like, that's intimidating for actors. And, you know, I was reading with him, and, you know, I could tell he was nervous, and like, he did it, but he did a lovely job. But you know, at the beginning of when you're beginning of the process, you're like, well, we've still got like 1 million people to see. But you know, he kept coming back and doing callbacks and stuff. And what really changed with him is that Star Trek came out, you know, when he had that bit at the beginning, that when he played Chris Pine's dad, that came out, and that really changed his energy in like a positive way, because a lot of male actors, I find, in the audition process, go through a phase of like kind of either disbelieving themselves or self-sabotaging themselves or whatever it is, even if they're not aware of it. He just grew, his confidence changed, and he had accessed the funny. And also because he'd gotten to know us by this point, because he was coming in a lot, I think he just relaxed and just, you know, and as I said, like we had to go through our process and see everybody to be sure and make sure everybody was happy with it. But he was perfect from the jump. And if Randi and I had the choice of being like, who is it going to be, we'd have both said him first day. So, but you have to go through the journey to get to where you want to be.
Sure, sure. I mean, you've worked with so many amazing directors and producers and obviously big studios. What was it like working with Sir Kenneth Branagh? Because I'm a huge fan of his as well.
I mean, for me as a Brit as well, the absolute dream. Oh my
Yes.
God. Oh my, I remember when I first had to like read it in the audition, I was just like trembling. And I was like, it's not about you, Tamara, it's about them. So, and then so I relaxed. But he was so, I mean, I would work with him all day, every day. He's such a dream, and like someone I've revered so much as an actor, as a director. You know, I'd seen him on stage before as a kid. Like, he's a dream. Such a great guy, and one of the best directors I've seen with actors, because he knows how to talk to actors, because he is one. Yeah, he's wonderful. Wonderful.
How much say, especially because at your standard of a casting director and how reputable you are, how much say do you have, or how much conversation do you have with the director in order to discuss who should get the role? Is it purely the director's decision, or is it based on both of your opinions?
Every job is different. So some for Devotion, for example, JD was very receptive to my opinion, and then the producers I'd worked with a bunch already, so they already trusted me as well. And so I knew my taste and I knew theirs. And so it was a very collaborative, very unified discussion and agreement. Other projects I've worked on where you're basically ignored and you're just, here are the actors, here's who I like, and then they'll just choose someone completely different. And not always right. And then all just in between, really. It's sort of every time is different. You know, the bigger the director, sort of the more they generally want to go with their own opinion. But essentially they're not watching everybody, we're watching everybody. So, you know, we're watching everybody and then making our selects to show them. So that's already, these are our opinions and these are our choices, our wide net of choices, and then we kind of scale it down and go from there. But yeah, that's sort of generally how it goes, at least with me. Other casting directors are different though, you know, other you know, people like Spielberg have worked with their casting director, and Scorsese's worked with their casting director for years, and so I assume they probably have a very quick shorthand, and the casting director will be like, you need to pick this one or this one, and they'll be like, okay.
Yeah. Tamara, you've been also accredited for helping to launch the careers of many actors in Hollywood, especially for the roles in Netflix's franchise To All the Boys I've Loved Before. And you're known as a casting director who really goes out of her way to kind of find the right actor for each role. Can you tell me a little bit about what your process is when finding that star?
I mean, star is hard because it's Noah, for example, with To All the Boys I Loved Before, I'd actually cast him in a movie before that, which was also on Netflix, called Sierra Burgess is a Loser. And he'd come in for a very small part, and because the lead role had been cast before I had joined, and that was actually with the Black Label folks who did Devotion. So Noah came in and read for a small part, and then our lead actor dropped out. And so we were like 3 weeks out of filming. And I said to the producers, I was like, do you remember that guy who was playing who's going to be playing because he got the douchey role? I went, do you think we should read him for like the lead? And they were like, why don't we try? And he smashed it. And so he did a great job on that, filmed that movie. And then like 4 months afterwards, I started on To All the Boys. And I told the producers, and I was just, and the director, I was like, you know, there's this kid that I just cast in this other movie. He's really good. He's really different. Like he's handsome, but he's not sort of cookie cutter Disney handsome. There's something sort of, he's got more juice about him, and he's funny and super charismatic. And they were like, okay. So brought him in and auditioned him, and I actually sent him home on his first audition because he was like, he had like some terrible clothes on, and I was like, "You're playing a leading man. Go home, change." And I was like, no. And so he came back in and smashed it. And then, you know, obviously did his chemistry test with Lana, which I think you can see online now because Netflix released it. And yeah, he did an amazing job. But it's also the movie, right? It's like you can put someone, because as I said, I put him in both of those movies, both in leading men roles, but that's the movie that hit, even though he's brilliant in the other movie too. It really just depends on the whole package, not just the actor, because, you know, people will credit me, which is very kind of discovering him. And I'm like, this kid was on the Fosters. I didn't myself watch, but he was a series regular on it. So he'd been around, but it's just the job that lifts you to the next level.
Right, absolutely. And, you know, especially nowadays, you know, representation and diversity and, you know, representation of women and men and disability and all that matter more than ever in TV and cinema. When you are casting, is that a priority, or are you just casting who's best for the role, or do you make it a point to make sure that there's an equal equality in your film?
I really try for equality and representation. And you know, I know I really annoy some producers because I bang on about it from the start, and they're just like, oh God, the equality police is here. And I'm like, no. Like, you know, as a person of color myself, I feel like more and more our world is more evolved, and in realizing, and I think our audiences especially are more evolved in realizing that you don't have to explain if the parent is one race and the kid is another. Like, people's families are different. Like, everybody, you know, I don't look like my father is a white man and I look nothing like him, but, you know, so if you just had my father and the daughter, why do we need to explain something else? It's just this is who we are. And so, you know, explaining that to producers and filmmakers has, you know, sometimes is challenging, but has been great. You know, I've been very lucky to have people that listen to me. For example, with American Underdog, it's a true story, and one of the leading characters was a young kid who was blind. And, you know, at the beginning when I took the job, I was like, we're gonna cast a blind kid though, right? And they were like, well, yeah. And I was like, no, we're gonna cast a blind kid. This is a real person. They're really blind. They navigated this. If you want to make this film, we're going to cast a blind kid. And it was a hard search, but we found him, and he was magnificent, and like stole the movie. He's so brilliant in it. But it's hard. And I think that some people are scared of putting in the effort and the time to find those sort of gems, but because, you know, it's like an open call, it's a search. And, you know, and also it was, again, COVID, so that was really difficult because a lot of these people weren't even actors. So it's like getting their family to understand how to self-tape them and stuff like that was hard. But we got there. And then in terms of whether a role specifies if someone has a disability or, you know, whatever, or not, I, again, would just try and strive for the best actor. One of the hardest briefs I ever had was for Step Up. It was to find a guy who was a person of color that could dance, sing, act, and was also in a wheelchair. And I'm like, are you joking? And I was like, okay. And I just was like, and this was a series regular role. And so I got this brief and I'm like, okay. So we started on the other roles, and I was like, okay, like, let's do a search for like a disabled dance company. And we found some different places. Finally, we only probably had like 5 people send in a tape, but this one tape from this actor called Eric Grace came in, and phenomenal. He has 2 prosthetic legs and uses a wheelchair, but also can walk on his prosthetic legs and dance on his prosthetic legs, sings, is biracial, and phenomenal. And turned out he lived in Atlanta where we were filming. So I was like, even better, we don't have to relocate somebody. And it was just like that. And he was the first person I cast in the show, because I was like, we're not going to get better than this. This guy is a gem. And now he's having like a full career that has nothing to do with the fact that he has prosthetic legs, which is the best thing ever, because he's a good actor. It has nothing to do with the fact that he has prosthetics. So that's amazing.
That's an incredible story. I love hearing stories like that. But doesn't that make your job even more incredible and even more worthwhile every day, knowing that you're giving people who perhaps would not have been considered this
Mm-hmm.
new hope and this new dream and this new life?
Yeah, I mean, super proud of it. We don't really think about it really that often, but something, when I see them, especially if I see them on a show that has nothing to do with me, and I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. Like, I'm glad that they're doing good and that, I had a small hand in helping them get there. So
Amazing. I love your story so far. And it's great and it's inspiring all of the actors who tune into The Working Actor. You've got a lot of other movies that are coming up yet. 2022 is still not done. We've got another movie coming up on Netflix, which is starring Benicio del Toro and Justin Timberlake. Can you tell us that? It's Reptile. Can you tell us a little bit about that and working with the two?
Yes. So that was also with the producers who did Devotion. So literally I work with them all the time. God bless them for hiring me. That's Black Label Media. So Justin and Benicio were on board before me. Actually, Benicio was. Justin, yes, they were doing the Justin's deal when I came on board. So it was definitely those two are amazing. But the assembling the cut, like the director was brilliant, and the young guy who had done all of the music videos for The Weeknd, he's amazing, and it was his first feature. And he just had such a great take on it. I mean, I can't really explain the story too much because it's a twisty thriller, and I don't want to give anything away because it's like a really good twisty thriller. But we, I got to again cast really great people from like Owen Teague to Michael Pitt. Just it was great. Matilda Lutz. It's such a really fun, good cast, and I think it's going to be a really good film. Yeah, it was, but again, it was COVID, so it was a lot of self tapes and then callbacks with his director on Zoom. It was a very, very similar process to what we did with JD, actually.
Yeah. What do you think of the transition of musicians that turn actors? You have Joe Jonas in Devotion, obviously the Jonas Brothers, now he's going into acting. Justin Timberlake in sync solo, and now feature films are his
Yeah.
priority. What do you think about that? And it can't be easy for every actor. So what do you think an actor like that needs to possess?
I think the willingness to not be number one. I
Ooh.
think that what was so great about Joe in Devotion, going back to that for a second, when his agents pitched him, I was like, I think he might be distracting, and then we're not going to offer it to him. So if he wants to do it, then I'll happily watch his tape. And to their credit, they went to him, and to his credit, he was just like, I want to do this. And he didn't want to be the lead. And like, to have that less of an ego, the word is, but to not have that kind of ego, because a lot of people do have egos and want to be number one, right? And so for him to not have that and to be like, no, I want to be part of the team, and he shines, but in a great way, not in a distracting way. You're not like going, oh, is that Joe Jonas? He is believable as the character of Marty Good, and really committed to it, and really, is part of the ensemble. And so and the same with Justin Timberlake in this particular movie. I mean, I haven't seen the cut yet, but the character Benicio is the lead, and then Justin Timberlake's character, whilst probably the second lead or third lead, is he's really gone into himself in a as a character. He's not being Justin Timberlake. Do you know what I mean? And although to be fair, he's obviously proven himself with Palmer and other movies, so I'm not taking that away from him. But he again is someone that can embody a character and isn't distracting. And I think that's the main thing. If you're going to cast someone big or super famous that's a musician, you want to make sure that you're not doing them a disservice by making people go, what the hell? Why is that person there? And then they're gone. It's got to feel organic and real.
I love your mindset because, some people would be like, oh my goodness, Justin Timberlake's in a film, but you're like, no, he'll be too distracting. He'll take away from every other person. I want you on my team. Thank you. That's amazing.
Trust me, it's not always a popular response, but
Oh my
you know.
goodness. But that shows the level of confidence and establishment that you are at with your own agency. You are an Emmy nominated Los Angeles casting director, Tamara-Lee Notcutt. So, with all of the actors that are tuning in right now, they obviously want to know your opinion, your advice on how to kind of get their foot in the door and make it to a Jonathan Majors kind of category. So, I guess what advice would you give to aspiring actors who would want to get to that point in their career?
Oof. It's hard, right? Because so few get to that point, especially at that age. And it's not because not everybody's trying. It's sort of right place, right time, right role, right job, right move. Like there's so many other factors that you have no control over that attribute to getting to that position. So all I would say is that it's not about being famous. If you want to be in the long game, if you want to have a real career, it's just to focus on the work and focus on characters, and try not to have an ego about anything. Like there's no small parts, even though I think people think that, but you know, some of like the most memorable roles are like the two liners that you'll remember from like a movie, and it's as I said, there's no small roles, so it's just all about just keeping your head down and like just working hard and not getting distracted. I know like the business has really changed and a lot of people are very sort of disheartened, especially the working actors, on like self-taping and not necessarily getting into the audition rooms as much. But you know, for me, whilst I was one of the people that really loved auditioning with actors, but now I can see so many more actors. And whilst that maybe sucks for the actors that I saw a lot because now they've got more competition, it really opens up like the world, as it were. Like we can cast people from like Game of Thrones or the new House of the Dragon, and they cast their lead from Australia, and like she was a self-tape from Australia. The casting director didn't necessarily know exactly who she was. No shade to the casting director. It was just like she just self-taped like any other person and got the job. And so it's broadening those horizons makes it harder for everybody, I know. But if any casting director is worth their salt, then everyone's watching your tape. And whilst you might not be right for the job that you go in for, or you don't get the job that you go in for, doesn't mean that we don't remember you for something else. And I definitely have, and cast people done, you know, from that. You know, I've seen people on my show for Stars for Power season 1, and like brought them in and cast them for season 2. And so and the reference was I'd gone back through my tapes and gone, oh, I really like that person. And also my new thing since COVID has been like writing quite specific notes. And so when agents ask for feedback, I'll just copy and paste my notes and send them to them. So then they don't feel like they're going into a black hole of, you know, now my notes aren't always nice and sometimes or helpful, but I feel like at least, you know, I watched it and this is what I felt. And then they have the choice to relay that to their client in a sort of more acceptable way.
Yeah. Now I'm wondering, as a casting director, do you have any off days? Because I'm assuming that you are constantly on wherever you go. You're constantly casting. When you see people walk by, you're probably having dinner, you see someone next to you. You're probably going to go to this wedding tonight and be like, oh, that person would be great for this film or this role.
Well, there are actors at this wedding. So yeah, it's the main actors at this wedding. Yeah, I mean, I switch off by watching reality TV. I'm terrible. So because if anything I watch that's a TV show or a drama or whatever, I am, you know, looking at it from a different light. So if I really want to switch off my brain and then just enjoy stuff, I'll watch reality TV. That's what I do.
But it's not real.
I know. That's what's so great about it. There's just like I can just relax and watch nonsense and and not have my brain stressed.
All right, one last question and we'll let you go, because you just mentioned reality TV, and there's there's that conversation amongst actors where it's like, yes, get your start in reality TV and you'll make it into Hollywood, or you'll get your foot in the door and that's how you'll get exposure and notice. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Disagree. I mean, one of the main things about being an actor is, or and now this isn't the case for everybody, but it's to have the anonymity of your real life. It doesn't necessarily help you to be super famous, especially from a reality TV show. Now, that's not to say that if there's something that, you know, say a casting director has watched something that they're in, and you know, a reality show that they're in, and feels that they're really right for a role, and they audition for it and get it because it's just similar to who they are as a person, that's great. But for the most part, I personally don't think that helps you. And even if it does help you for a minute, you won't last very long. It's like, you've got to, if you want to be an actor, you have to really try. People think being an actor is easy. Even I, to a certain degree, at some point thought, oh, I can do that. And I did a small role in a movie because I did the director a favor, and I was just like, oh, hell no, I don't know where to look, I don't know where to stand, I don't know what to do. I was just like, oh my God, I can't do this at all. And so it gave me a definite new respect, because I was just like, you know, even if you've gone to drama schools, stuff like being on a set, you don't get taught. You don't know where to stand, where to look, what to do. Like, you know, all you know is like, I've got to learn my lines and create a character, but you don't really know all like the ins and outs of being on a film set. And for someone that had worked in film at that point nearly 20 years, and I had no idea what to do on a film set myself, and I was like, oh, I need to really learn this. So it was a good experience for me, because I actually did get to learn it, but it also kind of enforced that it's not for me. I was like,
I know, but you've got to be honest, when you were in front of Sir Kenneth Branagh, you were probably like, oh, I can act, let me truth be told, right? No, well, thank goodness. I mean, I'm sure you would have been a great actor, but
no.
I am so thankful that you chose casting director, because look at you now. What a success story. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for taking time for us on The Working Actor. This has really been a treat. And you have a wedding to go to, so enjoy your time there.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks so much.
Bye.